Subtle skills, big results.
Welcome to the Ninja Selling Podcast.
Hello, Ninjas. Thank you for joining us. Larry Kendall here, author of Ninja Selling, and we have a very special guest, a great ninja, and even a greater friend. Jonathan Spears is with me. Jonathan, welcome.
Larry, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. You know, a lot of the ninjas you may recognize, Jonathan, if you've been through the ninja installation, you saw his slide. Inman News recognized Jonathan as the youngest person ever to break $1 billion in sales in a career. So many of you know Jonathan, credible story. Jonathan is from Florida, Northwest Florida, and we are, though, sitting in beautiful Beaver Creek, Colorado. And
Yes, we are.
That's because you have a home here.
Yep.
And you've been here for a month. Tell us about it.
I have. Yeah, I've had a house in Beaver Creek for the last 5 years, and it's one of my favorite places to come and just sort of get out of the humidity of Florida and enjoy the outdoors of the mountains.
Yeah.
What's interesting too, Larry, is you have all these market parallels with the second home market that I live in full-time in Florida, as well as the second home markets here in Colorado. So often enough, I see my clients out here. Sometimes I feel like it's mini Florida because we'll have folks that come in from 30A and they'll spend a few weeks here and we're able to reconnect and enjoy this beautiful weather.
Beautiful. And I think you said you have 10 people at your home right now?
I do, yeah.
Tell us about your
full. Yeah. Well, I've got my beautiful wife, Julie. We just celebrated 11 years of marriage. So awesome. And then we've got our 3 and 6-year-olds, so my son and daughter. And we've literally been doing everything from taking llamas on a hike, which is something you can do here in Beaver Creek, to river rafting. And yesterday we just floated down the Glenwood Canyon. And, you know, when I first saw it, I had butterflies in my belly and I thought I was going to die. And then at the end of it, I was screaming for joy. It was awesome.
Well, you know, we say that the goal of ninja selling is to help you increase your income per hour so you can have a life. And clearly you're living the dream on that. I mean, you're running this incredible business. Further background here for all of you on Jonathan. You enrolled in college at 14.
Yeah.
You got your real estate license on your 18th birthday.
I did.
Got into real estate within 7 years. At age 25, you were doing $100 million a year.
Right.
At that point, you formed a team. We'll talk about why you did that. Your team now is doing $500 million a year. And you're able to take a month off, come to Beaver Creek, Colorado.
Yep.
I know you come here also several times a year. You love to ski.
We do. We spend a few months out here.
And so we're going to learn about that, how you're able to live that lifestyle, have that income, build that business, take care of your clients. And at the same time, what comes up for me is anytime you see somebody who's living the dream, I'm curious how you got here.
Right.
Because my experience is it was never as easy as it looks. You're living the dream right now. You're living the success.
Yeah.
But tell us about the agony before the ecstasy. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us about how you grew up and how you evolved to where you are today.
Yeah, let's go back to 14-year-old Jonathan. It's funny you said I enrolled myself in college. I actually have to give a little bit of credit to my mom, right? Because at the age of 14, I didn't have a driver's license. So I had to say, Mom, would you please come and, take me to college, take me to school? Would you drop me off every day? But, I was a very ambitious young kid. And I remember going through kind of middle school years, and I didn't necessarily get along with my peers. I always either felt like my interests were different than theirs or, for whatever reason, I was very, very strong-willed. And so I tried to channel that strong will into the right places. And for me, it was like, okay, I need a challenge in school. School was sort of boring me. And I'm sure, anybody out there that's an entrepreneur can relate to maybe going through school and, thinking that the conformities and the confines of a classroom are tough. And so I had to go out and figure out, okay, how could I challenge myself and sort of grow my learning capacity? And yeah, when I was 14, I decided to start enrolling in college courses full time. And the rest was sort of history. I had my first college degree, 16 going on 17. And then I went off and got a bachelor's degree with a focus in real estate and finance, 17 going on 18.
Wow. As you say, you're ambitious.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Just an overachiever, that's all.
Well, tell us about that first year in real estate. How did you get started?
Oh, you guys are going to love this. So my first year in real estate, I spent it working for $400 a week. That was a fixed salary that I got working as an assistant. So I got into real estate in 2010. in Northwest Florida, we had what I would call a tragedy. It was the Gulf oil spill. It was a BP Gulf oil spill.
Yeah.
There was a lie. It was maybe the worst PR campaign that's ever been done on Northwest Florida because CNN had a live camera on oil that was spilling out into the Gulf of Mexico. And where we live in Florida, the Gulf of Mexico is really our greatest natural resource. It's like being here in the mountains, and these guys contend with the possibility of wildfire, and natural disasters are certainly an element of living in specific areas. For us, this was a very unusual one. And so I didn't know in January of 2010, when I went to study and sit for my real estate license, that would be the headwind that I would face in my first year in real estate. And so instead of jumping in full force as an agent, I had the opportunity to come on as an assistant doing broker price opinions on foreclosures, essentially scrubbing data, inputting it into a system, and then handing that off to a lead agent to finish and submit to a bank. And what was really fascinating about this is that it was about the least sexy thing in real estate you could possibly focus on. I mean, I was doing BPOs from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening, almost 12-hour days as an 18-year-old still kind of finishing college. And what it did was it shaped my mind with an understanding of the market. And so when I look back on it in hindsight, it was a tough time. We talk about that agony.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was jumping in anything. I was driving a Honda Element and I was still, I just moved out of my parents' house in a very little apartment that I was splitting rent with a friend. And I was really just trying to set down roots in a very tough market and create that knowledge and understanding that would later help me be an advisor to serve people with a very unique perspective of what our market was doing.
Well, you're starting in 2010. So what comes up for me was Florida was very hard hit by the Great Recession.
For sure.
2007, 8, 9. Most places were starting to come out in 2010, and then you get hit with the oil spill. Now you have some of the most beautiful beaches in the world, and all at once, that's just kind of another blow to the market,
definitely,
to the economy. So you already had all these foreclosures.
Yeah.
Then comes the oil spill.
Right.
To complicate that. And so you're doing, a lot of people don't know what a BPO is,
right?
Broker price opinion.
That's right.
And so that was your first year. How long did that go before you started to, you were working as an assistant?
I was working as an assistant, yeah, for, I would say just about minimum wage at the time. It was interesting, but for me, I considered it a paid education.
Absolutely. You learned the market.
I learned the market. Not only did I learn the market, I had to learn an area from, and if you're familiar with Northwest Florida, it's essentially the entire panhandle. It covers almost 2 time zones. So from the Alabama state line to the Tallahassee line, which straddles central and eastern time zone, I learned all of those markets. And I was able to get this sort of advantage because I could go and cherry pick the certain areas that I became passionate about. So as you start doing broker price opinions for banks, you discover neighborhoods that where you physically go take these photos that you input into this little document. It forced me to get out of the office and get into the community, which is number one. And it also gave me this understanding of where properties would trade for the people purchasing at the time, which were investors. So today we run a business where we sell multi-million dollar homes, and we also develop these style of properties. But I had to really start at the bottom, understanding the basics of consumerism and, what do investors desire in the market and who is actually making the market go round. And I think that first year of real estate taught me to really pay attention to the stories of the market, because the whys, why are these people trading? Why are they purchasing today when, if you turn on CNN, there's oil pumping into the Gulf and it's a scary time to buy.
Right.
But we saw very savvy people come in and go, you know what, this is still a special area and I'm going to scoop things up while people are fearful. And so it taught me a lot about basic economics, people skills, handling problems that are very, very complicated, down to, today we take for granted DocuSign maybe. Back then, we had to get wet signatures on everything, including blue ink. So I couldn't even scan and copy things. I had to actually use the original document.
Wow.
So very different approach.
Yeah. Well, today you're considered one of the luxury brokers in the entire country.
Right.
And let's talk about that transition. How did you go from doing BPOs, doing foreclosures, working as an assistant? Where did you start to have a breakthrough into the luxury market?
So I got to say this, Larry. Where you gravitate is what you'll cultivate. And for me, I'm going to go back one more minute. My parents used to get on to me because I'm the kid that when they brought me to a restaurant, they would say, Jonathan, here's the kids menu, order here. And when the waitress would come or the waiter would come, I'd say, I'd love a steak and lobster. And my dad like thumped me on the back of the head. Like my interest always sort of revolved to more expensive taste. So as I was doing these foreclosures and BPOs, I would get this stray luxury foreclosure, this stray BPO, and man, it would ignite something in me.
Okay.
And so I started to see this passion and this spark. And so I followed it. And I always tell my team today, it's like where you're passionate, where your focus is, where you gravitate, that's the soil that will be most fertile for you to cultivate the best fruits in your business. And so for anybody out there that's watching, it may be military buyers, like you may be super passionate about, a specific segment of the market. It doesn't necessarily have to be luxury real estate. For me, that's where it was. And it may be the hardest thing to transition to selling mobile homes to multi-million-dollar homes. But I was able to do it with ease because I was passionate about it.
Yep.
And I really loved what I was doing.
What I saw, number one is the passion. Number
Yeah.
two is the curiosity.
That's right.
You're always learning.
Yeah,
And number three is the work ethic.
absolutely.
And if you have those,
It's a recipe for success.
it's a recipe for
no matter any
success.
industry.
One other thing that you mentioned to me is that along that path, you discovered how to work with builders.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
So one piece of advice I would give to anybody listening today is that look for the who is transacting in your market and at what frequency. For me, Larry, I found that I would find different individuals, whether it be an investor or it be a builder, that they were transacting over and over and over on different deals in the market versus maybe my one-off client that I build a relationship with. I'd be able to help them. And then I may not talk to them again for 5 years when, if I keep up with the relationship, they call me and they say, Jonathan, we're ready to sell. But when you're in a market specifically, you may find that there's a mom and pop builder that they're building in your favorite neighborhood and they're building the most incredible product. I gravitated towards those builders and developers in my market. And I was able to build a great relationship with them because I could articulate their product passionately and became very successful at selling it.
I'm laughing because I can just see it. If I was a builder with the passion that you have
Yeah.
and how you articulate that passion, I would want to work with you.
Let's go, Larry.
Yeah.
Why are we not starting an investment company?
Right.
Let's go build some houses
Exactly.
like this.
That's great. Well, you've built such a great business and a great reputation for the luxury market. I think, did you coin the phrase that your market is the Hamptons of the South?
So
Tell us about that.
my team and I did coin that phrase.
Uh-huh.
So we're
I
jumping.
read about it in the Wall Street Journal. You're in the Wall Street Journal periodically.
Yes. Yeah. I love the Wall Street Journal. They're amazing. I'm passionate about marketing, passionate about PR. I think for most real estate salespeople, we're all entrepreneurs, right? We're all passionate about business. We're passionate about the things that make the market go round. And I often tell our team that we're essentially a marketing company that transacts real estate. And so when we think about how to tell the story of a property, how to tell the story of a product in general, I always go back to the late and great Steve Jobs. That turtleneck, that stage presence, he built it up and then he displayed this amazing product and blew our minds, changed our lives.
Yeah.
I want to be that storyteller one day. And so when I think about the Wall Street Journal, we were able to take a market that had not been covered and tell its story. And I think anybody that's listening today, you can be an ambassador of your market when you tell the story. You control the narrative. And for us, we were able to coin 30A, which is a 28-mile stretch of white sand beach, emerald green waters, the Hamptons of the South. And the reason that it fit perfectly is because we get this incredible influx to these little village towns that are architecturally significant, much like the Hamptons, from the Southeast. So Nashville, Dallas, Atlanta, Birmingham, Louisiana, like all these notable Southeastern hubs, they would vacation, and they still do, along this beautiful stretch of
Why
coastline.
don't you mention some of the names
Yeah.
of those little beach
Absolutely. Rosemary Beach, Alice Beach. A lot of you guys have heard of Seaside, which is really the grandfather of new urbanism, which is a type of living where you just park your car and you never get in it again. You can walk to restaurants, walk to high-end shopping, and really anything that you need.
I taught a ninja class in watercolor.
That's right.
That's in that same area. And the beach is
Yeah.
there. The sand is like white flour.
Did it squeak when you walked on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So, and a lot of people have never discovered that part of
Right.
the country, and it's
Right.
beautiful. And you've basically put it on the map.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's where taking those opportunities to look around and see where the market may be going and to articulate that at the highest level is really what PR is.
Yeah.
You are telling the story of that product. And for us to get in front of a publication like the Wall Street Journal with value is very similar to prospecting a great developer and saying, hey, we've got something valuable here. Your audience is going to appreciate what we have to say about it. So whether you're in Denver, Colorado, or you're on the East Coast, or you're further west in Los Angeles, you always have the opportunity to take the story of your market and channel it in the right direction to where you're positioning yourself to be the one that transacts and advises people for the future.
Yeah, you're influencing the media.
Absolutely.
You're not,
Definitely.
relying on the media.
For sure.
You influence the media.
Yes, correct.
And let's go back. So let's just follow along here. So you start out doing foreclosures.
Right.
You start to discover, and your enthusiasm is infectious. You're working with builders. You're working with high-end clients. You built this to, at age 25, you're doing $100 million a year.
I think it was 23, but
23.
Who's counting,
Okay, so maybe you hit that at 23, but at 25,
yeah,
you're married and you have your first child.
That's right.
And all at once, and you're working a lot.
Too much.
And so tell us what happened next.
This, boys and girls, is where you want to pay close attention. Because when you have the wind at your sails and everything's going really, really well and you've got it all figured out, and then for me, my life changed in the most incredible way, which was having our daughter. But I realized during that moment, I could no longer just throw time at things. Very often as entrepreneurs, we want to just go after it. We want to spend all of our years grinding and working through it. And this sort of grind culture, as it's been coined, has become a major influence in work ethic.
Yes.
But what I realized at the age of 25 with our daughter on the way is that I could not grind through being an incredible parent. And I'm naturally an overachiever, but when I had this beautiful daughter come into my life, I knew, okay, I've got to reprioritize if I want to have the best relationship and the best opportunity to be there for her. And so part of that was figuring out what is my capacity with time. And that started with doing a self-audit. Looking internally and saying, how am I spending my time? Where am I focusing? What am I doing with, let's just say, my hours between 9 a.m. and 5 o'clock? Because if I can't fit everything I need within those hours to be successful, then I'm failing and I'm going to fail my family. And so instead of putting my work on a pedestal, I had to put my family first. And that was very important for me and for, the future that I wanted to have with my wife and kids. And if they were sitting here today, they go, you know what, Jonathan's not perfect, right? Because none of us are. But that priority shift in awareness was a huge influence on how I've been able to build the success that I have today and continue to sustain and grow it.
And that was your inspiration, basically, to start a team,
That's right.
to build a team.
Exactly right. Well, I realized, Larry, that we're only one individual, like maybe me and an assistant. There's only so much that the two of us could accomplish together. There's only so much that we could do for a single client together. And so once you start aligning yourself with wonderful people, and for me, I also had to say, you know what? I don't have it all figured out. Like from an organizational standpoint, I'm really glad that I've got somebody in my life that's super organized, because my mind works at 100 miles an hour. And so you hire people maybe to the weaker things that you have in your business, or you hire people that have strong skill sets that you don't have. And so that was a big priority when I made that shift from single agent to, okay, it's time to start a team.
And let's take that a step at a time. What came first in your team? Walk us through how you built that piece by piece.
So as I started to kind of build that success, and frankly, I was throwing a lot of hours at things, I realized, okay, I need an assistant. I need somebody who can step in.
You were doing $100 million a year and you didn't have an assistant?
For quite a while, I did not have an assistant. No, I got my first.
You're amazing.
2015. So that was a game changer for me. And, I was so fortunate to get to work with somebody who complemented all the areas of my business that I was not the best in.
So first was the assistant.
Yep.
Okay. And what came next?
So let me just say this. So many people ask me, Jonathan, when is it time to hire an assistant? Like, I feel like I'm getting all this momentum and I'm gaining traction and, when should I make that investment? At what point? And I always look at them and I say, listen, when you start to lose business because you're not able to get there, or when you see an opportunity maybe to go out and get a big piece of business like a development deal, or you have a specific client that may have multiple projects coming out of the ground, you need to recruit help. And you need to find somebody that aligns with your vision for growing your business and jump off that cliff and make that investment. And what it does is it gives you your time back. So when you get an assistant, you're essentially buying more hours in your day. You're finding more capacity to grow your business. And what I found, first off, just to be real with everybody, is that as soon as I hired an assistant, I was like having to try to micromanage myself not to go and do tasks that I asked her to do, because I wanted to do them. I'm perfect at it, right? Yeah. But you have to trust that individual. And with that extra time you get, you go out and you prospect. You go find new clients. And ultimately, you go the ninja way. You build amazing relationships.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Ninja. When were you first introduced to Ninja?
So it's so wild because I want to say it was 2015, 2016. This was before I really had a big team that was rolling. I would talk on, a podcast or, maybe to an individual, and we were talking about how I built my business. And I always said relationships first. It's all about relationships. And one time I had an individual say, have you ever read this book, Ninja Selling by Larry Kendall? And I'm like, no, I've never heard of that. Ninja, what is that? And I thought maybe it was like a martial arts class for real estate agents, maybe some self-defense. But what's amazing is I started to dig into it and I was like, oh my gosh, like I see the same keys of success that I had in my life and in my business played out in a very structured way, which for, kind of ADHDer like me was very refreshing and honestly very helpful.
Well, that's great. That's great. And then you've used that as somewhat of a platform for your team.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ninja has been such a game changer for us. Specifically, I've been able to take not only the curriculum that you've developed, but the philosophy, I would say the essence of character, and infuse it into my core values for our business. And really what we hire, fire, and evaluate our team members off of is this kind of culture of what Ninja is based on. And a lot of that has to do with building these deep, lifelong relationships. At Spears Group, our mission statement is actually centered around exactly what Ninja's principles are, which is to build lifelong relationships, and we create raving fans. And so that's really a nod to you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. And it's a nod to you for taking something. A lot of people read the book but you actually, implement it and make it happen. And I could see if I was on your team, I would be caught up in your enthusiasm and your passion. How do you give your team direction? Obviously they get wrapped up in your enthusiasm and your energy, but how do you train them? Is there anything that you're doing to help make sure that they share in your vision? Share that with us.
For me, I created a very structured approach to business. One of the most valuable things on the planet outside of people are the most valuable, is organization. So organization is when great people come together with an aligned vision, at least we should say a great organization, and they execute on tasks together that allow them to do so much more than what they could have done individually. And so we were talking earlier about this transition to single agency, team member, team leader. For me, it was really just this evolution of understanding how can I serve my clients at the highest level, and how can I do so much more with other people than I could do simply by myself.
Well, I think that you mentioned earlier relationships. It looks to me like you're the rainmaker,
right,
for your team.
Yeah.
And the way you rainmake is by building relationships.
That's right.
That is the big engine that's driving your business.
Larry, I see the industry changing though, to a certain extent. I think you could call me a rainmaker in a certain extent. And the V1 of Spears Group was definitely centered around Jonathan. What we've tried to do, and we've hit on kind of our press hits and our marketing, is we really have tried to take the success that we've built in Northwest Florida and build a brand that is powerful to where, if Larry, you said, Jonathan, you know what? I'm leaving Fort Collins. I'm going to Destin, Florida, and I want to sell real estate there. that our name, our brand would open doors for you that would have never been opened up before, because the success and the reputation has continued to be at the highest level. And so that's really the organizational aspects of what we're building around today. The traditional team models of rainmaking, where, sort of just being a pass-through for leads, we've tried to get away from that.
Well, you obviously have, because I think you went through a rainmaker stage, but
Yes.
now what you've done is you've empowered your team. They're rainmakers as well.
Absolutely.
That's why you're able to sit here in Beaver Creek, Colorado for a month with your family, and the business is rocking, because you have built a business that's, sustainable, evergreen. It happens with or without you.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Now, you're the leader. You have to pay attention to it.
Absolutely.
But you've leveraged yourself and your team members.
One thing that I tell my team all the time is that if you are an individual agent and you have no structure or organization to your day, to your routine, and to the approach of your business, then you're simply a hobbyist. You are not a professional. And for me, I want to be a leader of professionals. I want my team to come in and they wake up every day and they throw on their Spears Group jersey, and they're able to get out there and they're able to operate at the highest level because they have a structure. There's an ideal daily schedule for them. They know what they're doing with their time. They've got principles in place. For me, I always tell our team our core value of excellence is the most important one, because it's built on consistency. And everybody looks around and they go, okay, what are excellent brands like Nike or maybe even Coca-Cola or any of the icons that America has come up with? They're all about repetition and consistency.
How do you monitor that? What are the performance indicators that you look at with your team on a weekly basis or a monthly basis?
Yeah. So Larry's hitting on these performance indicators. For all of us, we may look at our sales volume as a performance indicator. I've figured out that if you boil it down to your GCI, you're really looking at true performance indicators. However, it's really about the quality and quantity of conversation. This idea of quality to create consistency has to do with building great relationships. If my team wakes up and they're deer in the headlights, we all know what a deer in the headlights looks like. It's a deer that's about to get hit. I tell my team, if you find yourself in that moment where you don't know what to do with your day or your time, you focus on building a quality relationship with somebody. Start with your sphere of influence. If your sphere of influence isn't doing it for you, you need to divert and adapt and get into cold calling or get into cold prospecting. Not prospecting like, hey, I've got a buyer for your house. I don't really, but I'm just calling to say that. It's, hey, I've got value for you. Did you know that we just sold this property over here, which means that the property that you have may be worth X? Or very simply, I'm out here in Beaver Creek, Colorado, and I just walked past your house. The color that you guys use on your shutters is amazing. I got to know what that is.
Yeah.
Just anything that you can do to create that spark and create authentic relationship is key.
We always say the quality conversation is a Ford conversation.
That's right.
Family, occupation, recreation, dreams.
Yeah.
And I was a speaker at a national conference this year. And right before my turn on stage, they had the 3 top producers for that brand in the nation. And they were on a panel. And the final question of them on that panel was, how do you measure the quality of your day? All 3 of them said the same thing. How many Ford conversations did I have today?
That's right.
How many quality conversations did I have today? That's really the measure of the quality of my day.
Yeah.
Because those quality conversations are what creates quality relationships.
Larry, we think about agony to ecstasy. 99.9% of the time, a professional sports player will spend either on the field or in the gym as opposed to being in the end zone. They have to fall in love with the agony, which is the pursuit. It's not agony in a way that's like, okay, this is constantly painful. It's really being comfortable in an uncomfortable situation to get you to your goal. And I think what's really special about Spears Group and the brand that we've created is that our team really loves the process of building relationships with people, learning about the market, being educated, understanding the stories of the market so that they can add value to somebody's life.
The power of these relationships. Right now, we're in a market that is down from the high of 2021, 6 million home sales. We're down to around 4 million home sales this year, plus new construction. So, but if we measure resale homes, high 6 million in 2021, 4 million this year. So down about 33%. And yet what I observe is the ninjas that have relationships, they're crushing it.
Yeah.
And I notice with your team, you're not missing a beat.
No, not at all.
You're just rocking.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. When I think about our team, right now we've got 15 individuals. And throughout this conversation, we've kind of talked evolution of team. Our team is made up of 15 brokers that operate together, and they also operate independently. Some of them saw major success in 2020, 2021, 2022. Summer of 22 was a major reality check for our entire industry,
Yes,
for our economy in general. Interest rates doubled just about overnight. We had wars that broke out that year. Headwinds, as I call them, that are completely out of our control. The brokers that you're talking about that are crushing it today, that are having their best years in one of the toughest markets we've had in a decade plus, are the ones that not only have adapted because they understand that what we did yesterday doesn't necessarily work today for building great relationships, but it's really the agents that are willing to do the hard work. They're willing to get out there and position themselves for success. I often call it becoming the mayor of your market. The only way you become the mayor of a market is you have to be obsessed with what's happening in that market. You have to be physically present in that market, and you have to be the one that's controlling the narrative of that market.
Yeah, we always say that our business is pretty simple. It's two parts, generating the business and doing the business. And for, like you say, a decade plus, pretty much we focused on doing the business.
That's absolutely right.
And we didn't have to generate it. The business was there. We were riding that wave. We had tailwinds. But now we have headwinds, and now we have to generate that business.
Right.
The way we do it is with conversations that build relationships.
Yep.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears here for a minute. One of the comments you made to me is that you self-audit.
Yeah.
Jonathan, share with everybody, what do you mean by self-auditing? I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. So nobody likes the word audit's like a curse word for any entrepreneur, right? Especially if your CPA calls and they say audit, you're like, oh my gosh. Self-auditing is an uncomfortable thing. It's talking about self-examination. And when I say self-audit, it's really sitting down and looking at the goals that you've had for yourself and determining, am I moving in the direction of those goals as efficiently as I want to? For me, a self-audit may look like an audit of my daily schedule. So very simply, for anybody listening, if you want to just take a very basic self-audit, I want you to journal everything you do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, and just do that for one day. And if you can, do it for at least a week. And you'll start to see inefficiencies or behaviors that may be taking you away from the goals that you have for yourself, whether it be for your family. Like one of mine is, I want to be home by 6 o'clock so I can be sitting at dinner with my kids. My wife reminds me often enough the days that I missed that goal. And that's not necessarily a self-audit. That's my wife creating accountability, right? Because I've shared with her, this is my goal. This is what I want to do. It's amazing to have accountability, but a self-audit is this self-accountability. And the best way to do that is by tracking. And so for me, I have an ideal daily schedule that I know I need to wake up by 6:30 in the morning at latest. And I need to get to the gym by 7 a.m. because if I don't have my workout done by 8, then I'm not going to be able to be fresh and ready for my day. And I know my first appointments start at 8:30 or 9. And so having that clarity of these are my priorities, these are my forward conversations I know I need to have. I need to block out time from distractions, the fires, all of the emergencies in real estate that come up. And I need to focus heavily on making sure that I hit these targets each day. We're not talking minute by minute, militaristic style auditing. We're talking generality. For me, I have a time block from like 12 to 2 o'clock where I know I can prospect. In fact, the last 11 months of my life, I've taken lunches out. I'm not doing lunches with people because that lunchtime, I usually bloat. Obviously, I love to talk. I could sit and talk to Larry all day, but I have to control my schedule and have to be selfish with that time to a certain extent because I have goals I need to hit, both for my family and for my business and for the agents that I work for and for the clients that I work for. So boiling down to an ideal daily schedule starts with self-audits. And self-audits create a lot of efficiency in your business.
Well, one of the things we've learned from psychologists is you're more likely to be disciplined and to follow your plan if you track it. And that's what you're doing. So
Exactly.
Self-auditing is basically tracking your activities.
Yeah.
You mentioned take a day and track what you're doing. It reminds me, I had a top producer share with me how she hired an assistant was for 1 week, she took 3x5 cards. And about every 15 to 30 minutes, she would write down what she was doing for a week. Came back, spread them out on the dining room table and put them in piles.
Wow.
Using the Ninja PIE system,
Yep.
productive time, indirectly productive time, which is basically prospecting time.
Yep.
And then everything else. And then she took the everything else, and that was the start of her first assistant.
Love it.
And it's just what you're
I love
talking
it.
about, you know?
Absolutely.
It's an audit.
Yeah.
It's an audit. So
Yeah. And as you become a team leader, you begin to ask other people in your organization, hey, let's do the same thing.
yes.
Let's do this together. When you have a large organization, you have a decentralized command generally. And so what that means is you have governors within your organization that do the same thing, and they're in charge. I encourage all of my team members to do this, but mostly the ones in leadership who dial in on, hey, I'm setting the example here for how I spend my time. That everything else,
Yep.
hey, Jonathan, we need to potentially hire somebody to go and do this so I can be best at my focus.
We have a new quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Just drafted a young man by the name of Bo Nix from Oregon. And I was listening
Originally Auburn.
Originally Auburn.
Originally Auburn.
Yeah.
Love Bo Nix.
I heard I was listening to an interview, and he said, what you have to do, they said, how do you maintain the discipline? He says, you have to fall in love with the boredom of the routine.
That's right.
A lot of people, they just can't keep it up.
Yeah,
He says, after a while, you fall in love with it. And that's what you've done.
absolutely. And that's the thing. If you're not passionate, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Just stop, because you're doing yourself a disservice.
Let's wrap this up, Jonathan. What advice would you have for our ninjas? Just kind of put a bow on this. We've covered some great takeaways here. Any final thoughts? Anything that you would like to share?
I would. We talked a little bit about passion and enthusiasm. The biggest takeaway and the best advice I could give to all of the ninjas out there is to always mind your vibe. Mind your struggles, your greatest passions, your highs and lows. When you show up fully. When you commit fully. Be passionate and let those individuals around you feel that passion. It's always contagious. Don't ever bring negativity into a meeting. Try to keep that out. Try to come in with a level head, clear head, but mind that vibe. It is the most important thing that you have. And it's the one way that you can change somebody's life, whether you're talking to your barista at the favorite coffee shop or you're talking to your biggest client.
Beautiful advice from Tremendous Ninja, a wonderful friend. Thank you so much for breaking away from your family here in Beaver Creek to spend some time with us and make a difference for all of the ninjas.
Thank you, Larry.
I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys.
Okay, thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, visit us at theninjasellingpodcast.com to learn more about ninja selling classes and coaching to get you started or further your journey on the ninja path.
Thank you for joining us. Now go have an incredible day.